Hi kids, I'm back to show you how to do the rest of the problems like those on your review sheet going from numbers 25 to 47. So I gave you examples to be able to do the first set of problems 1 through 24 on the previous video, but today I'm going to show you how to do the examples like the ones from numbers 25 through 47. So first thing is you are evaluating using a calculator. So there are online calculators, there's Google Calculator if you need it. But if you have something like our graphing calculators, here's what you want to do. You want to check the mode, hit the mode button, well, turn it on first, right? Hit the mode button. Make sure that you're in degrees for this. Okay, so degrees is highlighted. I want to know what the tangent of 47 is, so all I need to do is put tangent. Let me move it down a little so you can see it. Tangent, put in 47, and then just hit enter, and it gives you a decimal. So we're going to round to 2 or 3 decimal places. This one will be 1.07. And so there's your answer here, 1.07. The next one's cosine of negative 400 degrees. So if I go back to my calculator, cosine, I hit the cosine button, and I put in negative 400 degrees, and it gives me 0.766. So evaluate using the calculator. Next set, find the value of the trig function. So you see how I've got the angle theta. You're going to locate the angle theta in your triangle, and then you're going to decide which sides you have, which one's the opposite, which one is the adjacent, and which one's the hypotenuse. And so if I'm looking at this angle, 5 touches it, so that would be the adjacent side. 7 is furthest away, that's the opposite side. And 8.6 is your hypotenuse because it is across from the right angle. So then I've got to think about SOHCAHTOA, and we talked about SOHCAHTOA before we got on this break. SOHCAHTOA. There's lots of different ways you can remember that, but SOHCAHTOA is probably the most popular. I'm looking at tangent, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And so I'm going to my triangle, and I'm looking at who's opposite. Got opposite over adjacent. The side that's opposite is 7, and the side that's adjacent is 5, and that's it. You just figured out what the tangent of the angle is. So there's no solving to be done. It's just writing the right ratio for that particular trig function. Going to do the same thing over here. Sine of theta. Here's my theta angle. Label your sides. This is farthest away. This is the opposite. This touches it. It's the adjacent. This guy's across from the right angle. He's the hypotenuse. I go to my SOHCAHTOA, and sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So if it's the opposite over the hypotenuse, then it's the fraction that is 3 over 5. And that's all you need to do for that one. All right, then we get into more solving ones, and this is kind of like what you were doing when you made the comic strips and when you did the scavenger hunt. So we are looking at these next set of problems. Find the measure of the indicated side or angle. So you locate where the angle is that they give you. Label your sides according to it. So 15 is farthest away, that's your opposite. X is the adjacent. And then you go back to your SOHCAHTOA, and you've got to decide which trig function you're going to use. So if I've got opposite and adjacent, that means I'm using tangent. So I'm going to set this up. Tangent of 42 degrees equals the opposite, which is 15, over the adjacent, which is x. And so there's your statement, and then you're going to go to your calculator and you're going to figure out the tangent, so you can see it, tangent of 42. And it gives you 0.9004. We'll round that to 0.9. So 0.9 equals 15 over x. And remember I said you're either multiplying or you're dividing. So to keep it straight, we put that over 1 and then cross multiply. So I've got 0.9x equals 15. And if I want to know what x is, I want to know what 15 divided by 0.9 would be. And that comes out to be 16.7. And so that's your x, solve for x, the missing side. The next one wants you to find the missing angle. So again, here's the angle. Label your triangle, adjacent, hypotenuse, and opposite. So this one has the opposite as 13, the adjacent as 10. I'm going to use tangent again because it's opposite and adjacent. So the tangent of my angle, called theta, is the opposite, which is 13 over 10, the adjacent. Now to find an angle in the calculator, if you go back and look at how this works, you're doing second tangent. So hit second tangent, you want that tangent to the -1 to come up. And so then you just put in 13 divided by 10. It's even easier than the problem we just did. And that'll tell you what the angle is. And the angle is 52.4 degrees. All right. Next kind is to solve the whole triangle. In other words, they want to know what are all of the angles and all of the sides. So if I'm looking at this example, I know a triangle has to add up to be 180 degrees, so I can figure out z pretty quickly. Z is going to be, if I take 180, my triangle, degrees, take away the 90-degree angle, take away the 39-degree angle, and if I subtract all those things, it's going to tell me what that remaining angle would be. So 180 minus 90 minus 39 leaves me with 51. So that's what z would be, 51 degrees. And now we've got all the angles and we're going for the sides. You can choose, there's lots of choices to make in this particular problem. You can choose whether to work from the 39-degree angle or whether to work from the 51-degree angle. You choose one of those first. So I'm going to pick the 39, just because that's the one they gave me. And I'm going to label my triangle based off of that. I want to know which side's adjacent, which side is hypotenuse, and which side is the opposite. So according to that 39-degree angle, this would be opposite, x, y would be the adjacent, and 20 would be the hypotenuse. You have to be careful because if you had chosen 51 degrees, this angle over here, that would switch these two things. This would now be opposite and this would be adjacent. This would still be the hypotenuse, but according to which angle you choose, you're going to label your triangle a little differently. So I'm going with the 39. I have it all written up the way that it needs to be based off of that 39-degree angle. And I want to know what x is. X is the opposite side. I know the hypotenuse. So again, I'm thinking SOHCAHTOA. Which trig function uses the opposite and the hypotenuse? And that would be the sine. So sine of 39 degrees equals the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 20. And so you go to your calculator and you want to know what's the sine of 39 degrees. And it says 0.629. So we're going to use that. 0.629 equals x over 20. Put it over 1 so you can decide, are you going to be multiplying or are you going to be dividing? And when you cross multiply this, you can see that you're going to end up multiplying those things. So 20 times 0.629 gives you an answer of 12.58. So that's your side for x. X would be 12.58. Now you have two choices of, actually you've got a lot of choices, but you've got two main choices of how to figure out this last side, the adjacent side. One of them would be to use the Pythagorean theorem. So you could use that, say y squared plus 12.58 squared equals 20 squared. That would be one option. Another option would be any of the trig functions that use the adjacent sides. So say we use cosine. Cosine of 39 degrees. Cosine of 39 is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So that would be y over 20. And so you can see the problem is going to be a lot like the one we just did over here with the sine. But you need a different value for what the cosine of 39 degrees would be. Wow, 0.777 is what you get. So 0.777 equals y over 20. Put that over 1, and I can see I'm going to multiply these things. So I want 20 times that. And I get an answer of 15.5. Technically 15.54 if I were looking at it. And that's my y value, so this is 15.54. It should kind of all make sense. Remember, the hypotenuse is always the biggest side in your triangle. And if you remember back from geometry, to just do a quick check, the smaller angle is opposite the smaller side. The bigger angle is opposite the bigger side. But the biggest side of all is going to be your hypotenuse. So it kind of all fits together. All right, there is solving triangles. A couple more things. These are now like your scavenger hunt that you did and like the comic strip. These are just a couple word problems that you need to solve using your SOHCAHTOA rules. So I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA one more time so we can have it in front of us. Best part of these is that you get to draw pictures just like you did in your comic strip. Some of your pictures were really cute. All right, Leah is on an airplane traveling to Bermuda, don't we wish? She sees a ship in the ocean below. The angle of depression from Leah to the boat is 42 degrees. If she is 1,000 meters from the boat, what is her altitude? All right, so my planes tend to look like fishes, but here it is. Here's my try. All right. there's my airplane. Okay, there's Leah in the airplane. She's in there. She's a happy girl. All right, so she looks down. She sees a boat. There's my boat. She looks down, sees the boat. The angle of depression is 42 degrees. Now, angles of depression, this is a little tricky, but they come from the horizontal. We talked about this when we were back in class. This is the 42-degree angle. Most kids want to say it's this angle here. Be careful of that. It's not. It's the one that comes from the horizontal. All right, but here's my right triangle. The actual right triangle I have looks like this. So from geometry, and we talked about this too in class, if this angle is 42 degrees, then so is this one over here inside my triangle, because alternate interior angles are equal. So this is also going to be 42 degrees. She is 1,000 meters from the boat. Now where is she? She's up here, right? The boat is down here. So the width, or the length of that, is the 1,000. 1,000 represents this hypotenuse in your triangle. And the question wants to know, what's her altitude? Well, that's how high she would be in the air. The altitude, how high. There's your setup for your right triangle. Now you need to label up your sides. Here's your angle, 42 degrees down here. X would be the opposite side to that. 1,000 would be your hypotenuse. And so if I have that in consideration with your SOHCAHTOA, you can see opposite and hypotenuse is going to be the sine function. So the sine of 42 degrees equals the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 1,000. All right, so I need to figure out what the sine of 42 degrees is. So I go back to the calculator, and I'm going to put in sine of 42. And it says 0.669. So that's what I'm putting here, 0.669. Oops, 0.669 is x over 1,000. Put that over 1, cross multiply, so that when I multiply that by 1,000, I end up with an answer that's 669.13, and the units would be the same as what they were here, so it's meters. And that's how far she is, that's what her altitude's going to be, how far up in the air she is in that airplane. All right, Fireman Lou is trying to rescue a cat who's stuck in a tree. All right, so here's the tree. Here's my cat in the tree. And yeah, he doesn't have a body. Maybe he should have a body, huh? All right. Fireman Lou. My fireman. We love our firemen. There's my fireman. He's trying to rescue the cat. He stands 10 feet from the base of the tree. Well, the base of the tree's here. He's standing 10 feet away. This is my 10. He looks up at an angle of elevation. So looking up to the cat is the angle of elevation of 28 degrees. All right, what is the height to the cat? Well, how far up the tree is the cat? That's your x value. So if I'm looking at this, here's my angle, 28 degrees. I want to label my triangle, meaning that this side here would be opposite of that angle. The 10 would be adjacent to that angle. And the trig function that goes with opposites and adjacents is your tangent, opposite adjacent. So I'm taking the tangent of 28 degrees equals the opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 10. So you go to your calculator and you want to know what's the tangent of 28. And it says 0.532 if I round it. So 0.532 equals x over 10. Put it over 1 and cross multiply. This one's nice, it's just a multiplied thing. So your answer is going to be 5.32. The unit's the same as what it would be for the feet in this case. So that's how high in the tree that cat would be. 5.32 feet. All right, the last type of problems that we talked about that are going to be on the review for the quiz are finding arc lengths and finding areas of the sector of a circle. And there were two formulas that you had for this. Arc length is S equals R times theta, but the big deal was that theta must be in radians. All right. So what does that mean? The length from the center of your circle to the edge of your circle, that's your radius. The angle is this guy in here. this angle would be your central angle. And S is like the crust on the pizza. That's what we were talking about when we did this. That's the S value. So if I want to know how long the crust on the pizza is, this is the formula that I'm going to use. The second formula that we talked about was the area of a sector of a circle, and that had its own formula. The area is 1/2 the radius squared times the angle, and also the angle has to be in radians. So if they give it to you in degrees, then you've got to go the extra measure of transferring it and changing it into radians. So this one's asking you for the area, like how big is that slice of pizza? What's that whole area of that piece? So here's our last two problems. One is find the length of the arc and the area for each of these. One of them, they give you the angle in terms of pi. And notice how I wrote that. This is the same thing as if I said the symbol pi over 3. If on the quiz, when you have to input a pi, just use the letters pi, and that'll work the same way because you don't have the pi symbol on your keyboard. So just use the letters pi. So let's try it with this one. If I do my arc length, S is r times theta. I'm taking my radius, which is 7, and S equals 7, times my angle, which is already in radians. I don't need to convert this because it's already in pi language. And so I get times pi over 3. And all you need to do is go to your calculator and multiply that out. So 7, so you can see it, 7 times pi. You can use 3.14. You can use the pi symbol, whatever makes you happy. And then I'm dividing that by 3. And that's my answer, 7.33 if I round it. So this is 7.33. You can use the decimal answers, and your units are going to be the same units as what the radius was. So this one's centimeters. So that's how long the crust on the pizza is for that guy. But I also want to figure out the area for it. So the area formula is 1/2 r squared times theta, 1/2 of 7 squared times theta, pi over 3. That's a little more input into my calculator, but it's really not that big a deal. So if I do 1/2, 1 divided by 2, see if you can see me, 1/2 times, I'm going to put in parentheses, 7 squared. I'll just get that much for now. 1/2 times 7 squared. But then I'm going to times it by pi, 3.14, divided by 3. And that gives me my final answer of 25.64. So this area equals 25.64. My units are going to be squared because it's an area, so centimeters squared. All right, so arc length and area. If they give you the angle in pi, then you don't have to do any conversions. But you can see over here now we got to do the conversion because they gave me the angle in degrees. So before I even start the problem, I'm going to change that. 120 times. And if you remember from yesterday's video or from the notes that we took in class, to change it from degrees to radians, you're going to multiply by pi over 180. Now for this one, you don't have to do the reducing method that we did before because you're just going to be tossing this in your calculator. So I'm just going to take my calculator and figure out what is 120 times pi, 3.14, divided by 180, and it's going to give me a decimal that I can use. So it equals 2.093. We'll use that for our rounded version. All right, now I'm ready to do the problem because I've got my angle in radians. So my S equals r times theta. In other words, r is now 4 inches times my theta of 2.093. So you take your 2.093 times it by 4, you get 8.37. Units are the same as what it is for the radius, so that's your inches. And then you're going to figure out the area. Area is 1/2 of the radius squared, 4 squared, times the angle, and the angle was 2.093. So you're going to put that in your calculator. I have 1/2, 1 divided by 2, times 4 squared, and then I'm timesing that by my angle of 2.093. 0.093. And my final answer is 16.744. 16.744 units for area are going to be inches squared. All right, that should do it and give you enough reminders of how to be able to complete the rest of that review packet that goes from numbers 25 to 47. So that's what you're working on until they're due by midnight on Wednesday night, the 25th. And then I'll post the quiz for Thursday for you to complete. Again, the quiz is 10 questions. It's going to automatically grade it, but it takes 10 points off for each question, and I'm not going to plan to do that. I plan to take off 5 if you get them wrong, so just know that whatever the point value is on the graded quiz is not necessarily, you're going to get a better grade on the quiz when it goes into PowerSchool. Give me a shout with any questions. I also have Zoom time set up on Wednesday at 1 p.m. if you have any questions and you want to Zoom in and we can chit-chat together. But otherwise, send me an email. Hope you're all doing well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.